little bit about what you do.
So for the last decade or so, I've been researching network social movements and media manipulation and disinformation. So effectively, the rise in disinformation campaigns as it relates mostly to hate, harassment, and incitement. Very much interested in the stories of where these digital disinformation campaigns touch down locally and create havoc and, unfortunately, end in political violence a lot of the time.
Is there anything that you have learned through your work and research that you think people should know that they are unaware of in terms of this world of disinformation?
I think one of the things that continues to confound the fields of research in this era is how much we know about disinformation and how little is being done to stop it. Particularly, you have this very gross relationship between the tech companies and particularly the US government. And in doing so, anything that we would need to have consumer protections, privacy protections, to actually study and acknowledge the harms caused by disinformation at scale are not things that our government is going to be interested in looking at, especially as political parties benefit from disinformation and from the status quo.
When you think about fighting disinformation, it is true that disinformation has been around for a really long time, over many centuries in different forms. How much more difficult has it become because of both social media, AI, algorithms?
Yeah, what's pretty interesting about the field is that, it's true that disinformation, political dirty tricks, this has been around a long time. And figuring that out has been pretty much in the domain of journalists for many years. And what we've noticed as social media has expanded, more and more people are using it, that the share of disinformation being spread is reaching astronomical amounts of people, which is outmoded and outmatched by our decline in local journalism. And so unfortunately, we're in this really difficult situation to navigate where the politicians benefit and the tech companies continuously to make money hand over fist. We're moving now into an age of AI-generated content. What we know about AI-generated content is that a lot of it is going to be pornography, and it's going to be used to harm women. It's going to be used to harm people who are vulnerable. It's going to be used to harm people who cannot speak up or stand up for themselves. It's going to be used for blackmail. And downstream of that, we also have to worry about the other kinds of panic that generative AI can introduce into moments where people have very low trust in media and they don't feel like they're able to find the truth. And so generative AI is adding another layer of difficulty to the problem of really trying to understand what's true and what's real in this world.
On this show, we have done a series of interviews that we call News Matters, where we do talk to local journalists and we speak to them about the media landscape of today and some of the challenges of this landscape. When you think about, like you mentioned, the fact that we have fewer and fewer people who are practicing journalism here in Canada, we also have the issue that news is blocked on...
that to me is sickening.
It's sickening, yeah.
Facebook never should have blocked media. And it goes against the early values of the web itself, which is supposed to be an open information commons, right? And it really showed us very clearly what Meta is interested in, which is money and really nothing else.
And do you think there's any way to fight back? I mean, whether it's a journalist or an individual?
Yeah, so one of the things that allows them to make this much profit is that they've really captured a bunch of different countries and politicians strategically. There's seemingly endless resources in the tech world. It's almost like they're printing money. That bubble's going to burst, and it's going to create quite a bit of havoc in the markets. And we are going to have to see a re-territorialization of how people think about the value of labor, even. And one of the things that these companies really have underestimated is the creativity and the charisma of crowds. People really do not like the direction that tech is going. They do not appreciate the way in which algorithms have come to ensure that they live in these filter bubbles. People want more robust tools for navigating the media ecosystem. And so whether it comes because there's an economic catastrophe or some of these companies start to experiment too far afield with AI and eventually do something in such a way that the public really turns their back. And I do think that, unfortunately, the way that big tech is insulating itself right now by cozying up to the US government is really ensuring that every other country starts to think about building their own tech economy, starts to think about building their own digital infrastructures, especially governments who want to have an informed populace, because it reduces sickness, it reduces homelessness, it reduces all kinds of poverty when people are able to look at what's happening in the world and pick and choose how they want to participate in it.
What about the role of government? You mentioned a little bit the reaction that some governments are having, including here in Canada. There's a lot more talk over the past few months about digital sovereignty in this country, and there's definitely momentum behind that. One of the things that I think is a little bit frightening is the potential repercussions from the Trump administration, in terms of countries that are trying to regulate some of the US technology that we use today. Are our governments sort of failing us? I mean, I guess it depends where you live.
It does depend where you live, but also I do think that there's an opportunity for governments who are going to be bold and stand up against these techno-authoritarians. That's what's happening here. We're not watching an independent industry rise and grow and become trillion-dollar businesses. We're watching now an industry that has put itself under the wing of the most authoritarian government the US has ever seen. And in turn, the government has said, we're going to protect you as companies and allow you to do essentially whatever you want, knowing that if another country tries to regulate these companies, that the US is going to try to lean on them in some way. That, to me, if I was, I'm not a politician, but if I was running another country, I would think twice about contracting Microsoft. I would think twice about contracting Palantir. And so I do think that there are opportunities for other governments to stand up and actually be the unifying voice that says the US has gone too far in this techno-authoritarianism moment, and they want to scale back. I was just in Slovenia at a very large disinformation conference, and what I was learning from a lot of people is that in the EU, a lot of countries are thinking about getting off US cloud infrastructure and moving their data and especially their citizens' data into more private spaces, especially now that we know that the way in which these tech companies are operating is literally making us sick. And it's disinforming us. And as a result of that, if we allow it to continue and it spreads to other countries, the next step is technocracy. They're going to say, well, we don't need politicians. We can effectively manage supply and demand and capitalism. We can manage the markets with AI. So the step after this is getting rid of representation. And so it's very important at this stage right now that we focus on ensuring that democracies stand through this moment.
And if I can ask just one last question for you, when you talk about the importance of democracy standing at this moment, journalism becomes a really critical role, or it has a critical role in that. What do you say to journalists out there who are trying to fight the good fight and, dispel some of that disinformation and misinformation that is out there? How optimistic are you about their future?
I've been thinking a lot about this. This is actually the subject of a paper that I'm writing on, thinking about, well, what if we were to move aside the thesis that news is dying and actually think with a broader frame of everyone's a journal-ish. So because we all have the tools for broadcast directly in our pockets, high definition broadcast on multiple platforms, we actually need to spread the habits of the heart of journalists to much wider and wider groups of people and make them more effective communicators. I'm not saying that everyone is a journalist and pick up your phone and go out there and document something. I'm saying learn the ethics of journalism, learn how investigations work, learn how fact-checking happens, become a more effective and trustworthy steward of information through your own social media and through the social media that you decide to share. And I think that at this stage, if we don't start teaching kids in high school how to be better citizens with cell phones and how to be better at spotting literally just mountains of bullshit on the internet, that we will be better off as a society. And so I wonder if the reverse of the loss of local journalism is true, where maybe it's the case that we just haven't been able to effectively educate people on the power of not just social media, but networked communication, the ability to create your own websites and newsletters, get off of the big tech infrastructure, explore, if you want to make a new journalism website, explore a platform like Ghost. If you want to build a newsletter, explore things other than, Substack. But really, think about the infrastructures that you use and how you talk to people. And when you want to put information out into the world, you also want to be trusted. And you want to be thought of as someone who has the right information at the right time. And so I do think that over time, if we take it seriously that everyone is a journal-ish, and we educate people on this ability that journalists have really crafted over the years, this professional set of skills, that we may be able to overcome some of the legacy media. And I'm thinking here about nonprofit newsrooms. I'm thinking about people starting up single subject newsrooms. I'm very impressed by outfits like the 19th and 404 Media. We need more of that. And I think that that's the next stage here, is organizing journalism around people and what I call talk, timely, accurate, local knowledge. Thinking about news as timely, accurate, local knowledge rather than thinking about it as just some kind of other industry, I think helps us repurpose and bring ourselves closer to the communities that we wish to serve.